a future for yourself. When Dr. Diop writes his great works and he tells you, you have to take this knowledge, not for knowledge's sake, but you have to take it and make it an operative scientific principle that you can use to reconstruct your social sciences, your human sciences. Diop is trying to give you a prescription, a program, not just a history lesson. And this is in the tradition of our best scholarship. So when you see these brothers and sisters, Dr. Obatataka, Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Francis Cuss Welsing, they come up with a prescription of what you should do. That's what Leonard Jeffries is trying to do. Start taking this explosion of information and institutionalizing in a process that will help you expand your mind and your spirit. Then you can reconstruct your churches, reconstruct your schools, reconstruct your families, reconstruct your communities, reconstruct the Masonic orders, reconstruct the Masons and the fraternities. So that's why we're on a victorious path. It's about a mission. And you have to be aware of that. And these 10 areas that we run into conflict when we deal with white supremacy are very clear. Number one is the African origin of humankind. Dr. Diop in his great book says that there is only one human race, and that human race is African. All of the scientific and historical data points to that. All of the archaeological finds. And that means that everybody else on the planet who looks different from us is a genetic mutation off of the African genes. That's why white supremacy has the problems with us, because once you take back your truth, it establishes you as the mother and father of humankind. Number one, we got a problem. Number two, we have a problem of the evolution of humankind, because as humankind evolved into large-brained humans, what Diop says, the first 6 humanoids, the first 6 human-like manifestations that emerged were all in Africa. The first 3 remained in Africa. The last 3 marched out of Africa and peopled the world. Homo erectus, Homo habilis, and Homo sapien, Grimaldi man. Then Africans in the various parts of the world, in the river valleys of the world, were impacted by ecology. The Great Ice Age descended. 90,000 BC, the Great Ice Age descends across northern Asia and Europe in what they call the Worm Ice Age, W-U-R-M. And humankind evolving during this period of 90,000 years ago has an option. You get out of Europe and you get back to Africa and you can survive intact as an African, or you stay in Europe and then you have to mutate to the ecology of the ice. And African peoples caught up in the ecology of the ice mutated into Europeans. You don't need your pigment when you're in the caves of Europe. Pigment is needed to negotiate the ultraviolet rays of the sun. We are people of color because of the rays of the sun. Here's that foolishness. Jeffries has a theory of ice people. I don't have a theory. We have a paradigm of analyzing the sweep of the human family. And the human family that's in the sun is of color because it is negotiating the ecology of the ultraviolet rays of the sun. That's what Diop calls Glugger's law, G-L-O-G-E-R. Mammals in the sun develop melanin to resist the ultraviolet rays of the sun. We are people of color because we are sun people. Europeans are people of the ice because they got caught up in the ice ecology and they lost their pigment, and that's why they became what they became. So there's a direct relationship between ice and the sun. Jeffries is not the first to talk about that. In fact, there was a book written a few years ago called The Iceman Inheritance, in which Michael Bradley talks about that. And then we helped promote the book and to help get it out in this new edition. And what we say is we need to study these things. Study the impact of the sun and the ice, because the European, for hundreds of years, created just the opposite. He said he was the first of the human family, the most brilliant of the human family, because of the ice. Because the ice made you aggressive, because the ice made you get up and go. And we were lesser than human and subhuman because of the sun. Because the sun made you lazy, because the sun didn't allow you to develop your brain. He used that same ecological dimension to stamp us with the stamp of inferiority. We're using science and culture to explain the different value systems. And what we say, as I said in this book, when we promoted it, clearly scholars must consider the relationship between environment, genetics, and culture. The significance of the Ice Age experience of European humanity on their particular psychology, sociology, and biology must be seriously studied. The Iceman Inheritance points us in the right direction. So when you get into your study groups, you have to study ecology. The ecology that allowed people in the Sun Belt, in the river valleys of the world, to have a blessed ecology, to produce agricultural science and other development. The ecology that allowed people from other parts of the world to produce an ecology that produced barbarity, a survival ecology that did not allow you to lock into the principles of the universe and the God force of the universe. That was a dog-eat-dog value system. And so this is what we've got to begin to understand. So number one, there's an African origin of humanity. Number two, there's an African evolution of society. Number three, there's the African cradle of civilizations in the valleys of the Sun Belt, such as the Nile. And number four, there's the African diffusion of culture to other peoples, to other parts of Africa, to other parts of the world. And that's when you begin to get the two cradle theory of Dr. Diop, northern cradle, southern cradle. Number five is the African stolen legacy of the Greeks. Great works by Burnell and others have detailed these things, but so did George G.M. James in The Stolen Legacy. So does Dr. Ben. But white scholarship cannot look at this because it puts a lie to the Aryan myth of greatness of Greece. But look at this, and I'm trying to wind it up, y'all. Put a timetable, put a chronology, and then you can just wipe out the pretense of Europeanness. If you're talking about the ancient development of humankind, Africans, you're talking about millions of years ago. If you're talking about African high development and evolution, Homo sapiens sapiens, you're talking about 200,000 years ago. If you're talking about that northern cradle, southern cradle dimension, you're talking about 100,000 years ago. If you're talking about agricultural science, you're talking about 20 and 15 years ago when the people moved into these river valleys. If you're talking about the special ecology of the river valleys allowing you to produce high concentrations of people, specializations of people, culture and civilization, science, morality, ethics, you're talking about 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. If you're talking about the building of the pyramids, that's 3,000 years ago. If you're talking about the Epirus Medical Papyrus, the Rhine Mathematical Papyrus, you're talking about 2,500 years ago. If you're talking about philosophical treaties of first of its kind, you're talking about 20,000 years ago. If you're talking about Akhenaten raising anew the concept of oneness of God, you're talking about 1,400 years ago. If you're talking about the people like Ramses building their fantastic temples to their God concepts, you're talking about Abu Simbel 1,200 years ago. In this sweep of history, the Greeks have not yet learned to read and to write the way scientists do. The Greeks have not produced any mathematics, any philosophy. The Greeks' poems by Homer are still being presented in Greek city-states by word of mouth because they do not have writing. The great golden age of Greece only emerges on the human plane 500 BC. By then, Africa has already had 4 golden ages, each of them spanning 500 to 1,000 years. There is no comparison between African Kemetic development and Greek development 200 years in Greece. That's why you have to have a timeline. So we're talking about the African stolen legacy of the Greeks, number 5. Number 6, the African heritage of Judeo-Christianity, Islam. Number 7, the African factor in Islamic civilization, particularly in the golden age of the Moors, particularly in the Swahili city-states, particularly in the Sudanic city-states in West Africa. And you're talking about number 8, the African underdevelopment and the development of Europe.